The grand hall of the Galactic Summit glowed with shifting colors, the air thick with perfume from alien worlds. Delegates from 100 civilizations filled the crystal tiers, speaking in dozens of languages that echoed across the chamber. When the human envoys walked in, the whispers began. Their simple gray suits looked dull beside the shining robes and plated armor of the galaxy's elite. Ambassador Kellen moved slowly toward the center dais, flanked by 2 officers. He knew they were being watched, judged, mocked. Cameras floated in the air like silent insects, broadcasting every second to millions of alien viewers across the stars. Humanity had waited for this moment for decades, to finally be seen as equals among the interstellar powers. But equality was not what awaited them. The first insult came from the Vathar delegate, his scales glowing red as he laughed. "Is this the best the humans can offer?" he said in a voice that buzzed through the translation grid. "Where is your fleet, Earthman? Did your sunburned planet run out of ships?" The hall broke into quiet laughter. Even the floating camera drones seemed to hum with amusement. Kellen kept his face still. His dark eyes scanned the crowd, then turned to the shining figure of the Dravkan Emperor, who sat on the upper throne with a cold smile. The Dravkan Empire ruled the trade lanes between 8 spiral arms. Their word was law to smaller nations. The Emperor leaned forward, voice smooth and cruel. "Your species still uses fire and steel," he said. "You beg for a seat among those who control energy itself. What gives you the right to speak here?" Kellen took a slow breath. "The right to speak," he said, "comes from the courage to stand." That only made them laugh louder. The Emperor rose from his seat, tearing the Earth emblem from Kellen's chest plate and letting it fall to the floor. "Then stand," he said. "Stand beneath the laughter of those greater than you." Cameras zoomed in. The hall erupted in jeers. Kellen bent, picked up the emblem and placed it carefully in his pocket. Then he looked up, not at the Emperor, not at the crowd, but at the floating lenses above. "History will remember this day," he said softly. "I hope it remembers who laughed first." As he turned and walked out, the other diplomats followed in silence. The hall shimmered with laughter long after they were gone. But Kellen's wristband flashed once, a tiny pulse invisible to all but him. It was a signal transmitted through a hidden relay buried deep in the summit's communication hub. It carried a single phrase wrapped in ancient encryption: Protocol Dawn. Outside the summit's glass walls, the spaceport glittered with ships of every design. No one noticed the faint distortion above the upper orbit, an optical shimmer where light itself bent unnaturally. Hidden within that shimmer waited something vast. Kellen and his team boarded their shuttle, faces blank, voices silent. The pilot whispered, "Sir, we could have walked out fighting." Kellen's answer came calm and slow. "They think war begins with weapons. It begins with patience." As the shuttle left the planet, alien news channels began replaying the moment of Earth's humiliation. Across thousands of systems, people laughed at the humans who dared to dream of equality. Memes, jokes, and edited clips spread through the galactic net. One caption read, "Primitive Earth, still crawling, still dreaming." But far beyond their reach, in the cold shadow beyond Neptune, a different message was being received. Deep under the ice of Triton, an AI core flickered awake. Hidden hangars began to open, releasing ships that had never been seen by alien eyes. Sleek, silent, and covered in black alloy that absorbed light, they formed lines stretching across the void. Back in the shuttle, Kellen watched the starfield through the viewport. His hand rested over his pocket where the torn emblem lay. "They do not fear us," he said quietly to himself. "That will change." The shuttle broke atmosphere, entering hyperspace. For a brief second before they vanished into the jump stream, the planet's orbit sensors detected something strange. A faint, rhythmic pulse across the dark. 3 beats, then silence. Old Terran code, long forgotten by other species. It meant only one thing: the fleets are listening. On the other side of the galaxy, an admiral awoke to the same signal echoing through her command deck. She rose from her chair, eyes wide with purpose. "After all these years," she whispered, "Earth speaks again." Back at the summit, the laughter continued. The Dravkan Emperor raised his cup in mock toast. "To Earth," he said, "the galaxy's newest jest." The hall echoed with cheers and music, unaware that the stars outside had begun to shift, very slightly, very quietly, as if preparing to witness something that had not happened in centuries. And in that silence between worlds, The first movement of humanity's hidden fleet began. The void itself seemed to hold its breath. The shuttle landed on a silent platform deep beneath the icy crust of Triton. Frost clung to the hull as steam rose from the vents, and Ambassador Kellen stepped out without a word. There were no flags here, no reporters, no laughter, only the low hum of machines buried under kilometers of ice. The soldiers waiting for him stood in black armor with no insignia. They saluted in silence as the door sealed behind him. He walked through a narrow corridor lit by pale blue lights. Beyond the glass walls, shadows moved, massive, mechanical, patient. "Has command been alerted?" he asked. A voice answered through the comms. "Yes, sir. The signal reached Aegis Command 6 minutes ago. The fleets are awakening." Kellen paused at the observation deck. Below him stretched hangars that could swallow cities. Rows of warships rested in the dark, their hulls covered in frost and ancient dust. For decades they had slept, unknown even to most of Earth's government. They called it the Silent Armada, a myth to outsiders, a promise to those who built it. At the far end of the hangar, a single ship pulsed with dim light. Its name was engraved on its hull, Horizon's Edge. The ship's commander, Captain Raina Holt, stood waiting. Her face was calm, though her hands trembled slightly. "I never thought we would see this day," she said. "Neither did they," Kellen replied. "The galaxy thinks we are small. Let us remind them what small things can become." Raina nodded and turned to her crew. "Begin activation sequence." The hangar erupted into motion. Engines hummed, lights came alive, and air filled the empty corridors. Ships powered up one after another, their thrusters glowing like newborn suns. From above, the fleet looked like a chain of stars forming across the ice. Across the solar system, hidden stations began transmitting encrypted codes. In the asteroid belt, mining rigs transformed into launch platforms. Around Jupiter, orbital stations opened like steel flowers, revealing batteries of rail cannons that pointed toward deep space. Humanity had not been sleeping. It had been preparing. On Earth, the public knew nothing. The news showed only images of the summit, of aliens laughing at their diplomats. People whispered about humiliation, about weakness. Some called for isolation, others for surrender. Only a few understood the truth. Earth's silence was a weapon sharper than any blade. In orbit above Mars, Admiral Tian sat in the command chair of the Vanguard Prime. The coded message appeared on her screen, 3 dots and a line. Her eyes hardened. "All ships," she said. "Prepare for stealth formation. Set jump coordinates to Dravkan sector." Crew members exchanged glances. One finally spoke, voice quiet. "Ma'am, are we declaring war?" The Admiral's voice was calm. "We are declaring respect." Back on Triton, Kellen stood before a vast holographic map of the galaxy. Dozens of systems glowed red, Earth's allies scattered and silent. Others blinked with gold, representing neutral powers. Around them pulsed the vast blue regions of the great empires that had mocked them. "They will not see us coming," said Raina, standing beside him. "They do not believe we exist," Kellen replied, "and that is their first mistake." As the fleet prepared for launch, a communication officer approached. "Ambassador, the alien networks are spreading your humiliation video again. It has reached over 10 billion views." Kellen smiled faintly. "Good. Let them laugh while they can." Hours later, one by one, the ships vanished into hyperspace. From Neptune's shadow, streaks of light flared and disappeared, leaving behind only the icy silence of Triton. The largest movement of human warships in history had begun, unseen by the rest of the galaxy. At the same time, across alien worlds, the laughter continued. News anchors joked about Earth's brave talk and their tragic pride. The Dravkan Emperor held another public banquet, mocking the humans before millions. "We give them a seat among the stars," he said, "and they use it to cry." The crowd roared with approval, but in the far reaches of dark space, human ships were already crossing systems faster than light. The Horizon's Edge led the formation, silent and precise. Inside its bridge, Captain Raina stared at the glowing stars ahead. "How many ships do they think we have?" she asked quietly. Kellen looked at the projection before them. "None," he said. "They think we are still asking for permission." A quiet smile spread across Raina's face. "Then let us surprise them." The human fleet continued its journey, invisible to sensors, masked by experimental drives that twisted gravity itself. No broadcasts were sent, no threats made. only the calm rhythmic pulse of command codes moving through space and far away. In the heart of the Dravkan Empire, the Emperor's advisors dismissed a faint energy fluctuation near their outer colonies. Probably a sensor glitch, one said. The Emperor laughed, raising his cup. Humans could never cross half the galaxy unseen. But above his world, in the deep dark between stars, the distortion was growing. Shadows stretching, light bending. The first edge of humanity's fleet emerged, silent and endless, like a storm rising over an unsuspecting sky. The Dravkan homeworld of Ralkar burned brighter than any star in the sector. From orbit, it looked like a golden sphere wrapped in a network of floating fortresses and glowing cities. The Emperor's palace sat on the highest plateau, crowned by towers of crystal that pierced the sky. Inside, the Emperor feasted beneath a ceiling of shifting light, surrounded by warlords, envoys, and nobles from allied empires. Music filled the air and laughter rolled like thunder. They were celebrating what they called the Age of Earth's surrender. The Emperor raised his glass, a chalice carved from the bones of extinct beasts. To the humans, he said, voice carrying through the hall. May they learn their place as servants beneath the stars. The crowd erupted in cheers. Holographic projections replayed the moment Ambassador Kellen's emblem had been torn from his chest. Every laugh, every mocking comment echoed through the hall like a ritual of pride. But as the Emperor drank, the palace trembled. The lights flickered. For a moment, silence replaced the laughter. One of his guards tapped a comlink in his ear, frowning. Your Excellency, he whispered, orbital sensors are reporting something strange. The Emperor waved a lazy hand. More traitors, perhaps, but the guard's face grew pale. No, sire. Thousands of readings. They are entering our atmosphere at impossible speeds. The music stopped. The nobles looked around, confused. The great crystal windows turned from gold to blue as the shield generators activated automatically. The Emperor rose to his feet, his voice cold. Show me. A holographic projection appeared in the center of the room. The image made every heart freeze. The sky above Ralkar was filled with black shapes, hundreds, then thousands, falling like meteors but leaving no fire behind them. They moved in formation, deliberate and controlled. The Emperor's voice cracked for the first time. Identify them. Unknown signatures, said the technician. No matching registry. No transponders. No response to hails. And then the static came. Every communication line on Ralkar was cut simultaneously. The sky turned dark. From orbit, the clouds split apart. The first human dreadnought emerged like a ghost, its hull absorbing light, its edges shimmering with distortion fields. Then another. And another. The alien sky, once golden, now looked like black glass. Every defensive platform opened fire. Thousands of plasma rounds and energy beams streaked upward, blazing across the sky. But the human ships did not move. Their shields shimmered faintly, absorbing the impact without effort. Then, with surgical precision, the fleet responded. Thin blue lines of energy lanced downward, striking each fortress in perfect sequence. There were no explosions, just silence as entire defense stations lost power and fell from orbit like stones. The Emperor's advisors shouted, "We must evacuate!" But he stood frozen, watching as the night sky above his capital city turned into a pattern of moving stars. A transmission cut through the static. Every screen, every hologram, every device on Ralkar displayed the same image. Ambassador Kellen, standing on the bridge of the horizon's edge. His voice was calm, steady, and impossibly cold. Diplomacy is over. That was all he said. Moments later, the first dropships descended. They broke through the clouds in silence, moving faster than sound, each carrying platoons of armored soldiers. The Dravkan soldiers fired their plasma rifles upward, but their weapons fizzled as interference fields disabled them. When the first human squad touched down, they did not attack. They moved in formation, disabling defenses, cutting through locks, bypassing entire security grids. They were not here to destroy. They were here to demonstrate. The Emperor's personal guard tried to form a line as the palace doors shook. The sound was not of explosions, but of air pressure changing. Then the massive gates burst open and the human soldiers walked in. Tall, faceless in their reflective helmets, armor shining with dull silver. One guard fired his weapon in panic. The bullet disintegrated in midair. The human leader stepped forward and raised his hand. The guard dropped to his knees, gasping as his weapon system shut down. The humans did not shoot. They simply advanced. The Emperor tried to speak, but his voice failed. "What do you want?" he finally whispered. A voice spoke through the human commander's helmet. "We came to retrieve what you tried to humiliate our honor." Behind them, Ambassador Kellen stepped into the room. His uniform was spotless, his expression unreadable. The last time he had stood in this palace, he had been mocked. Now every alien in the room looked away. Kellen stopped in front of the Emperor's throne. "You tore this from me," he said, taking out the small Earth emblem from his pocket. "I came to take it back." He placed the emblem on the throne's armrest and looked out at the terrified nobles. "You wanted to show the galaxy who was superior. Now they are watching again. Let them see what respect looks like when it is earned." Outside, the human fleet hovered motionless, surrounding the planet in perfect formation. The communication blackout lifted just long enough for one broadcast to be transmitted across the galaxy. A single image of Ralkar's sky filled with human ships. Every empire saw it. Every ruler who had laughed at Earth felt the silence that followed. The video of mockery was replaced by another. Human war fleet standing above the most powerful world in the galaxy. And for the first time in living memory, the universe began to fear the name of Earth. Across the galaxy, the image of Ralkar's sky filled with human warships spread faster than light. Every broadcast, every data stream, every projection repeated the same terrifying scene. The Dravkan Empire, once untouchable, now silent under the shadow of Earth's fleet. For the first time in centuries, the great empires realized that their power was no longer absolute. On the distant world of Vareth, the Galactic Council convened in panic. The chamber that once echoed with arrogance now buzzed with fear. Delegates argued, their voices rising into chaos. "It must be fake," shouted one. "Humans do not possess ships of that scale." Another slammed his claws on the table. "Then explain how an empire fell in a single night." The council's supreme moderator tried to restore order, but the shouting drowned her voice. Every species had its own version of disbelief. Some blamed sabotage, others whispered of ancient weapons rediscovered by humanity. But one truth was undeniable. Ralkar had fallen, and Earth had not issued a single demand. In a dark corner of the chamber, an old historian from the Scythari archives spoke softly. "They were mocked for their patience," he said. "Now patience has become their weapon." His words silenced the room. Meanwhile, on the horizon's edge, Ambassador Kellen stood on the bridge beside Captain Reyna. The Dravkan homeworld floated below, peaceful now, its weapons deactivated, its rulers confined to their palaces. The broadcast screens around them showed hundreds of messages, pleas, accusations, and offers of alliance. Reyna crossed her arms. "They are terrified, sir. Half the galaxy wants to surrender, the other half wants to strike first." Kellen looked out the window, watching the sunlight scatter across the fleet. "Fear changes nothing," he said. "Understanding does." "But will they understand?" she asked. Kellen's gaze hardened. "They will when they listen." At that moment, every signal in the known galaxy flickered. Then across every world, every screen, every holographic field, the same image appeared. Ambassador Kellen standing tall before the human fleet. His voice was calm, but every syllable carried weight. "You laughed when we spoke of peace," he said. "You mocked our words, our silence, and our patience. But we are not here to destroy. We are here to remind." He paused, and behind him the horizon's edge shifted, revealing the fleet stretching across the sky like a ring of light. "Earth does not seek conquest. We seek respect, the same respect you demand for yourselves, the same respect you refuse to give." Across the galaxy, billions watched in silence. No threats were spoken, no ultimatums made, only the truth. The message ended with a single image, the Earth emblem restored to Kellen's chest. On Ralkar, the Emperor watched the broadcast from his throne room, surrounded by guards who now looked more like prisoners. He lowered his head and whispered, "So this is what they hid from us all along." A few hours later, the Galactic Council sent an urgent request for negotiation. For the first time in history, Earth was invited not as a guest but as an equal. Kellen arrived at the Council world days later, escorted by the same soldiers who had once walked through the Dravkan Palace. As he stepped into the chamber, no one laughed. No one whispered. Even the air felt heavy with respect. The Supreme Moderator stood to greet him. "Ambassador Kellen, she said formally. The galaxy extends its hand in peace. We regret the incident. Kellen looked around the chamber. The same faces that had once smiled at his humiliation now avoided his eyes. Regret, he said softly, is a start, but remembrance is better. He took the central seat, the one once reserved for the oldest and most powerful species. No one objected. Behind him, a projection of Earth's fleet glowed faintly across the council walls. As the meeting began, the council attempted to draft terms of truce, but Kellen interrupted. Earth does not need your forgiveness or your protection, he said. We came here to remind the galaxy that peace must be chosen freely, or it will be enforced by those who value it. Silence filled the room. The words settled like stone. For the first time in the Council's long history, the threat of force did not come from the oldest empires, but from a world they had once called primitive. Outside the Council dome, the human fleet hovered quietly in orbit, not firing a single shot. Their stillness was more terrifying than war. Across the trade routes, smaller empires began switching allegiance to Earth. Old enemies sought human mediation, fearing the alternative. For every insult that had once been hurled at humanity, a dozen new alliances now rose in its place. Back aboard the horizon's edge, Reyna stood beside Kellen as the ship drifted through the stars. You realize what you have done, she said quietly. They will never treat us the same again. Kellen nodded, eyes on the horizon. Good, he said. We did not come this far to be treated the same. The galaxy's balance had shifted. Fear had given way to respect. And for the first time in thousands of years, the Council's power was not held by the loudest voice, but by the calm silence of Earth. Yet as the stars glimmered ahead, Kellen's expression remained distant. The real challenge, and he murmured, is not to win the war of pride. It is to prove that power can still protect peace. In the cold dark beyond the viewport, the fleets of Earth drifted silently, their lights reflected in the endless void. The stars that had once mocked now watched in awe. Humanity had risen not to rule, but to remind the galaxy that patience, when tested too long, becomes unstoppable. The galaxy was no longer the same. For centuries, the great empires had ruled the stars with pride and arrogance, looking down on the smaller worlds that dared to dream. But now, wherever the stars shone, there was a shadow, a quiet one, that belonged to Earth. Humanity's fleets moved like whispers through the dark, their engines silent, their presence undeniable. No longer were humans seen as weak or naive. They had become something else entirely, a force of balance that neither conquered nor submitted. Ambassador Kellen stood in the observation chamber of the horizon's edge, watching Ralkar spin slowly below. The Dravkan flags had been lowered from the Imperial towers, replaced by banners bearing the emblem of the new peace accord, a silver circle surrounding a single blue planet. The treaty had been signed, and the galaxy now called it the Treaty of Skyfall. The Dravkan Emperor had bowed before Kellen, signing away his fleets to human oversight. Yet Kellen's expression remained distant. Victory felt hollow. War had not been declared, yet the silence of the stars was heavier than any battle cry. Captain Reyna approached quietly. You should rest, sir, she said. I will when they stop watching us like ghosts, Kellen replied, eyes still fixed on the stars. They do not understand what mercy means. Not yet, Reyna nodded. They will. They have seen what we can do. Fear is a good teacher. Kellen turned to her, his tone cold. Fear fades. Understanding lasts. That is what we must leave behind. A message blinked on the control console, a transmission from the Galactic Council. Kellen opened it. The image of the Supreme Moderator appeared, her tone respectful but cautious. Ambassador, the Council requests Earth's guidance in stabilizing the outer colonies. There are uprisings. They fear chaos will spread. Kellen stared at the image for a long moment. Then tell them what chaos taught us, he said. It builds strength where arrogance fails. The signal ended. Reyna sighed. They ask for help now. The same voices that called us primitive. Kellen smiled faintly. That is how history moves. It mocks the quiet, then kneels before it. Outside the viewport, the human fleet began to realign. Dozens of ships drifted into new formations, creating a vast ring of light around the planet. From the surface, it looked like a new constellation had appeared, an eternal symbol of watchfulness. The people of Ralkar stepped out of their homes to watch the sky. They expected thunder. Instead, they saw beauty. In the following days, human engineers walked the streets of alien cities, not as conquerors, but as builders. They repaired power grids, restored communications, and shared energy systems that the aliens could barely understand. The same beings who had mocked Earth's primitive technology now stood speechless as humans repaired their world faster than their own scientists could. At one construction site, a Dravkan child approached a human engineer, staring at his silver suit. "You came from the dark," the child said, voice trembling. "Will you leave when the light returns?" The engineer knelt down, smiled softly, and handed the child a small metallic badge shaped like Earth's emblem. "The light never leaves," he said. "You only need to look up." Those simple words spread across the planet faster than the broadcasts of fear ever had. Songs were written about them. Statues were raised. The empire that once laughed at Earth now taught its children to admire it. Meanwhile, in the outer colonies, new ships bearing Earth's crest began patrolling trade routes. They did not demand tribute. They escorted caravans, protected weak worlds, and silenced pirates that had once flourished under imperial neglect. The name human became synonymous with protection. To speak against Earth now was to speak against peace itself. But not everyone accepted this new balance. In the depths of the galaxy, among the ruined empires and silent moons, whispers began to rise. Humans are not saviors, some said. They are waiting to rule. Hidden factions gathered in shadowed systems, plotting revenge, unwilling to accept that a once-ignored world now shaped their destiny. Ambassador Kellen knew it. He read every intercepted transmission, studied every rumor, yet his answer never changed. "Let them hate," he told his officers. "They still speak our name. That means they remember." One night, as the fleet drifted between stars, Kellen stood alone in the bridge. The reflection of Earth's emblem glowed faintly on the glass before him. Reyna entered quietly, holding 2 glasses of clear blue liquid. "Peace tastes strange," she said, offering one to him. Kellen took it but did not drink. "Peace always does at first, especially when the universe is learning it from us." Outside, the stars shimmered. Dozens of smaller ships warped in, joining the fleet, a mix of human and alien vessels now flying under the same symbol. The first unified command had been born, and with it a promise that no world would be humiliated again for being small. Kellen looked out across the vastness of space. "Once they called us children of dust," he said softly. "Now we are the storm that clears the sky." Reyna smiled faintly. "And what happens when the storm ends?" "Then," he said, finally taking a sip, "the sky belongs to Earth." Below, the night side of Ralkar sparkled with lights, cities reborn under the watchful orbit of the human fleet. No sounds of war, no cries of fear, only the hum of reconstruction. Humanity had come full circle, from humiliation to command, from silence to legend. As dawn broke across the planet, the golden sky reflected the fleet above. It was as if the stars themselves bowed to Earth, and in that moment, every being who looked up understood one truth: peace had returned. But it came wearing the shadow of those who once bowed to no one. Humanity had risen not to conquer, but to endure. And now, in the stillness between galaxies, that endurance had become a light no empire could ever dim again.